everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. This is the podcast where we talk about your personal and professional growth, and I share stories, insights, and care for you in order to help develop you into the person that you were meant to be. And going back to having guests on the show, I'm super excited to be face to screen with a great mentor of mine, somebody who cares for other people at a high level, next level. We have Aubrey Boatright. Aubrey, thanks so much for being on the show. Why don't you tell our guest a little bit about you?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. Seriously, I was super honored to be here and excited to talk a little bit about care. I think it's a great and fun thing to talk about. But yeah, just a little bit about me. I live in Oklahoma City. I know Josh because I work for Booster, and I've worked for Booster for 6 years. And it's just been honestly the best job ever. And truly has impacted my life. A lot of people, when they talk about themselves, they might share about their job and then move on quickly. But I feel like Booster has just become a really big part of my life, not only because it is my job and I love my job, but I have also made just so many friends through Booster and just my growth personally and professionally. Probably a lot of what I'll share today, I owe the credit to Booster for helping me get to that place. And so, yeah, I've been working for Booster for 6 years. It's been great. I was a restaurant manager before I worked for Booster. That was how I got connected. Was a server at the restaurant, left to go work for Booster, and that's a whole thing I could dive into about that connection there. But yeah, I live in Oklahoma City. I've lived here since high school. I grew up in Boise, Idaho. I'm a big um, Pacific Northwest side of the country person. I just think it's beautiful and great up there. But Oklahoma has been a really great place for me since high school. And yeah, I and married to my husband Davis. Going back to the restaurant job, that is actually where we met. I was his boss, which is a fun story to tell
Scandalous.
people. Yep. Did have to get permission from the owners. They were really great. We kept it very professional. But we got married in 2020, and yeah, so we'll hit 4 years at the end of this year. We have a dog named Charlie who is sleeping at my feet right now. He takes up all of our time and energy. But yeah, that is just a little bit about me.
Awesome. So you got married in 2020. I want to dive into that a little bit. What was that experience like? Was it really stressful? Did you have to reduce the amount of guests? Did you have to change venues?
Mhm. I feel like I could have a lot of different answers to that. We got engaged on New Year's Day, 2020. So at that point, nothing was going on, and I was very quick on wedding planning. I booked the venue, we had our wedding party set up, I was dress shopping, I did all the things, and basically from January to March. And then COVID happened, and everyone was like, "Oh, aren't you so?" Because when COVID first started in spring 2020, people's weddings were getting just canceled, and any big event was being canceled, and so many people were telling me like, "Oh my gosh, aren't you so glad your wedding is at the end of the year? You won't have to worry about this." Because my we got married in December, and I'm like, "Yeah, like, we're good." And we kind of go through the summer, and I did go to a couple weddings in the summer. Obviously, living in Oklahoma, let's just call it what it is. COVID rules and things were just a little different than maybe they were in other states in the country. And so I had gone to some weddings over the summer that had restrictions and things. And I'm still thinking in my head, like, December will be good. We'll be good. And honestly, through the fall of 2020, things looked positive at times with COVID. And so I still was not making any adjustments and was going through as planned. And then it just gets closer to December and it's still COVID season. And yeah, so probably about a month out, I was realizing that things were not changing, and started making some small adjustments on guests and things like that. Um, Again, you know, I'm grateful that our venue did not shut down on us, that our vendors did not step out, but We did have a couple people get my videographer got COVID 2 days before the wedding. Luckily, he had a really great assistant that came, but there were just little hiccups like that. Um, so depending on the day, my response might be different. There were some very stressful moments, lots of tears, and things, but at the end of the day, we got married. We're still
Mm-hmm.
married, and that's all that matters. And because of COVID, we postponed our honeymoon, which was something I was really sad about. But then it ended up working out because after getting married, we just kind of started thinking about other honeymoon options because we had more time to plan. And we ended up doing this like epic overwater bungalow honeymoon that we would not have done right after our wedding. And so like there were things that definitely worked out. So I try to look at the positive. That's just my personality. And getting married at the end of the day was the most important thing. And that happened. So can't complain.
Yep. Um, uh, that was our outlook on our wedding as well. We got married in 2022, not 2020. But man, the I wasn't quite prepared for all of the changes you had to be prepared for when it comes to weddings. I mean, we planned a beautiful outdoor small wedding venue, wedding ceremony. It got rained out, so we had to go get married at a pavilion in a soccer complex where we had already rented all the chairs and all of our guests had to sit on metal picnic tables that were screwed into the ground. It was not quite what we were expecting, but at the end of the day, we did get married, and that's all that matters.
Mhm.
So if
Yep.
anybody is listening and they are stressed out about a wedding, it's okay. You can look back, you can laugh at it later. Stressful in the moment, but the most important thing is that you walk down the aisle and you get to leave with the one that you love. So,
Yep. And every day gets better from there. Like you think that that's like the best day of your life, but like the best days just continue happening after that. So you've got so much to look forward to.
so for those that are listening, we have had an episode of the show where we've talked about care, what it means to care in the hard times, but I want to take it on a little bit of a different journey today. I want us to focus on three different areas of what it means to care. And those three areas are personal, professional, and self-care. So, Aubrey, in your words, I want you to define care. What is care? Why is it important?
I would say care is obviously at times putting others before yourself. I'm sure we'll get to that in a second where you've got to find the balance. Care is like being selfless, putting others before yourself. It's recognizing that everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes. Everybody has a very different personality, and we have to recognize that everyone operates differently. That requires a lot of care. Care is intentionality. Care is not always something that is casual or doesn't take a lot of thought. Sometimes it can be, but sometimes care is something that takes time and takes effort and is needs intention behind it. Um, Care is listening and leveling with people. I just had a phone call a second ago. Someone just was very stressed and very overwhelmed and just feeling all the feels. And I, in that moment, had to just level with them and say, I hear you. Your feelings are valid. And I can help you fix this, or I can be here to listen to you. I think that's also care too, is just listening and leveling out with someone. So um, I could probably go a lot more directions from there, but that's kind of my main thoughts for me personally when I think of care.
So, you had talked about putting others before yourself in situations.
Mhm.
How do you care for others when you yourself don't feel cared for?
Ooh, it's a great question because when you get on an airplane and they're doing the safety check at the beginning and they tell you that before you help someone next to you with their oxygen mask, you have to put yours on first. Because
Hmm.
how are you going to help someone if you don't have yours on? And I think that's a really great analogy, but I also don't think it's that black and white of a rule with care. I don't really think care should really have rules. I think care looks different every day. And so, yeah, there are days that I might be going through something, but someone else needs care. And sometimes I do put that aside. And I think that that's okay sometimes to do. But I would say that you kind of have to think about what what is the best approach, because depending on the person you're caring for, the situation, do you need to be strong for them in that moment? Do you need to be focused in and be strong for them? Or sometimes I think you can also approach it with like a, I can relate with you. I am also feeling down on in life right now, or I am also really struggling. And here's some things I'm doing for myself or telling myself, and I want to encourage you in that too. So I think just like communicating that and recognizing what is that need of care for that person when you're in a tough season, because um, you know, it's not going to always work out perfectly that you're high on life when someone needs care. Sometimes it's just not that way. Talking about COVID, for example, like everyone was going through it at that time. And so we kind of all had to be there for each other, even if we were struggling. And so, yeah, I think just recognizing what does that person need? Do they need your strength in that moment, or do they need like someone who can relate with them a little bit and share in that struggle or share in that need of care?
That's great. What do you mean by strength in that moment?
Like, I think an example would be if, say, this is really extreme, but say someone just suffered a loss. Maybe they had a breakup, maybe they lost a family member,
Mhm.
and you don't want to be that person that's going to come in and um you don't want to add any negativity or Debbie Downer or be like, I can relate with you in this moment. That's probably not going to be helpful. It's probably going to be helpful to come in and be really strong for them and say, hey, I'm here for you. You've got this. What can I do to help you? What are you thinking? What's going on in your mind? I think the focus does need to be turned more on them in that moment. And so I think that's where there's a lot of emotional maturity that comes into place with care, and just knowing, again, kind of like I said, just knowing like what is the most help, what makes the most sense for this person in this situation, what can I bring to the table, how can I communicate with them, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you think that emotional stability comes from?
For me personally,
Sure.
um I guess I could answer this for me personally, but also for others. I think a lot of it is experience that you have in life. I think a lot of it is also just taking the time to make others a priority and learn more. Here's kind of an example. I'm really passionate about Enneagram, strength finders. Some people might make fun of that. It's totally fine. But I actually think that the time I've spent reading books about it or listening to podcasts or having conversations with others, putting that front end work in has helped me moving forward, because in the back of my mind, I've got those resources or those things I've learned that are helping me to care for other people. So I think there's work that you put in to set you up well in those moments. Some people obviously are wired naturally to just care really, really well for people. They're more of a nurturer. That's just their MO. But I think for some people that's not their MO, and that is totally okay. Like not everyone is wired to be that way. So know yourself and know what your strength is. And if that's maybe not a strength of yours, how do you learn to flex that? And that might take learning from others or putting some work in.
Something that Aubrey is really, really good at is recognizing the potential within people, recognizing the strengths that they have, and she doesn't encourage people to just lean into those strengths. She encourages people to lean into those areas of potential that she knows are there, tapping into that. And one of the things that she has brought out of me has been how to care for others in stressful seasons, how to care for others in slower seasons. And Aubrey, how would you care for your team in the stressful seasons, in the slow seasons? Why do you care the way that you do? You are a very caring person, and that doesn't just come naturally. It's a product of something.
Hmm. Yeah. I am I'm definitely an extrovert and a people person, so I think that the wanting to have fun, wanting to encourage people, wanting to chat, all of that stuff is natural, but I've definitely had to work on other skills within care, whether it's growing more in listening and empathy and taking action in care, things like that. I run kind of a mile a minute sometimes, and so a million miles a minute. And so I've had to learn to slow down because sometimes that's what people need. And that's also how you recognize where others need care is when you slow down. So when it comes to caring for the team and different seasons, yeah, it looks different depending on the season. I would say busy seasons, um, I think a lot of encouragement is needed. At Booster, we've got, October, for example, is our busiest month, and it's really easy to get really sucked into that and only see what's right in front of you. And so I try to care for my team in those seasons by encouraging them to pick their head up and have the long view. I love countdowns, and even though our job is super fun and we love fun runs, I don't think it's a bad thing to have a fun run countdown. How many more fun runs do we have left until Christmas? That's a fun celebration. We all know fun runs are big, involved days, but I think it's really helpful to tell the team, like, hey, you may not be able to see this, but you've already done 20 fun runs this year and you only have 5 left. Like, think about that. Like, you can do that. Like, you've done 20, you can do 5. So I think there's encouragement in that, but also encouragement cannot be the only thing. As a positive person, I work really, really hard to not have false positivity because that can rub people the wrong way. And so I think really leveling out with them and either this can look like a lot of different things, like knowing the days that I need to step in and be doing what they're doing, leveling out with them. And then knowing the days that um I need to recognize that they're human. And what does that mean? Does that mean that they need to go sit inside and decompress and I jump in for them at school, or I bring them lunch, or um let them be a little bit more on the quiet side because they're going through it, whatever it is. So, just recognizing where people are at and meeting them there and making adjustments for them. Obviously, that's not something you always want to do, and that's really hard in the workplace. You don't want to live in the gray in the workplace, but I think it's okay sometimes to say, hey, normally we want our team members to be showing up and giving 100%. That's our expectation, but today it's tough for you to get there, and I want to recognize that and help you with that and fill in that gap.
I want to reframe people's perception of what it means to give 100%. I think that this is a really gray term that is often either black or white. You are either giving 100% or you're not giving 100%. And what is perceived as being 75% one day to, say, a manager or a team member, but that 75% may be that team member's 100%. And being able to have the conversation to lean in with care. Hey, how are we doing today? How are we feeling today? Okay, today I want you to give your 100% that you can today. That might look different from today. That might look different from tomorrow. But the term 100% is so ambiguous. It's so gray. And I think that we need to lean into that more without making the assumption of, oh, well, I've seen you work harder than this, so why aren't you giving me any more than this today? I think that can create tension, that can create a lack of care. So on Friday, we had a really physically demanding day, and it was hot. We had a whole bunch of team members that were helping out, which that was really, really grateful. We had to set up a fun run, tear it down, set up another one, and tear it down. And that can be a lot because it takes about 2 hours to set up a run, and it takes about an hour to tear it down and get it on the truck. So almost 6 hours straight of just doing this. And I felt guilty for having to take a break because I know myself. I have been able to push through days like that before, but I just couldn't on Friday. And like I said, I was feeling guilty, but I was still giving 100% of everything that I had in that moment to the team. Your 100% can vary depending on what you ate for breakfast, how much sleep you had. Did you have a time of intense fellowship with a significant other the night before? Um, there are a whole bunch of different factors that affect your energy level going into the day. And so if you feel like you're not giving your 100%, okay, you can push yourself to reach your 100% for that day, but don't assume that just because someone to you has let their foot off the gas a little bit means that they're not giving 100%. I think that we need to care for our team in that way, be patient, be understanding, lean in with questions, not judgment. And I think that also leans into the opportunities that we can provide for other people. So, to you, how does compassion play into professional development?
It's a great question. Really quick, I want to add on to what you just said because I think that's gold about 100% is not black and white. Somebody put it in the perfect words for me recently, and this will forever stick in my brain, is that sometimes you're at a 6 out of 10 when you show up to work, but you're giving 100% of that 6 out of 10. And I was like, that's a really good way to look at that. I love that. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's really good encouragement. But back to the question, compassion in professional development. Ooh,
Getting
there are
intense.
a lot of different layers to this. I think it starts with, again, knowing others and recognizing how other people are wired, recognizing other people's strengths. So that takes watching and observing, that takes listening, that takes diving into conversation. Um, just because someone shows up to work and is a really hard worker doesn't mean that they could promote to any leadership position. You have to really watch and okay, where do they really seem to shine? Where do they really have the skills? So you have to really watch that and notice that, dive into conversation with them, be regularly in tune with them. I love that Booster encourages consistent one-on-ones and consistent check-ins because it gives you a space to have a consistent conversation with someone about how things are going at work and what do they like at work and what do they not like at work, and that also helps you kind of shape what professional development could look like. So watching, observing, listening, and then from there, whatever you see, whatever you notice, you gotta say it. Because if you notice that someone is really crushing it at something and you never tell them, then that's like a total waste. So you need to speak that encouragement and potential into them because especially like if it's someone who's just trying to figure out what they're good at, what their skills are, maybe they're fresh out of college, they need that potential spoken into them. I know I had that for me and I've had it in multiple jobs, but specifically at Booster, there's been team members who have called things out about me that I did not think I was good at or recognize, but because they called it out, I started feeling more confident and I started flexing those skills more and I started putting myself out there more. So, whatever you see, whatever you observe, you got to call it out And so that's kind of the second step of that. And then from there, really giving vision to people, because it's great if you're encouraging them, but it really helps to have vision. So if you see somebody that you think would be a really great account manager one day, then you need to tell them, like, hey, I think you have a lot of potential to be in a role that's more client facing. And I hope you feel encouraged in that. And I would encourage you to now keep honing in on those skills. What opportunities can you take to learn more about that? And what opportunities can you take to flex those skills? So I think there's multiple steps to caring for people and showing compassion and professional development, but those are kind of the few steps that I like to take, and what I think really cares well for people and helps them feel encouraged.
You're getting gold here, people. Hope you're taking notes, got the notepad, got the pen. I I think that that's really awesome. I love how you broke it down into the three different phases, the three different steps. There are team members that are easier to care for than others, not just because the things that they desire are easier to come by, but because they're more open about what it is that they need in order to feel cared for. And so, how would you care for a team member professionally that may be hard to open up?
Hmm. Yeah, everybody requires different care, and that's what's really great about going back to me and my personality tests and things. I love the love languages test. And even though that taking the love languages test and telling people what your love language is helpful, I mean, if you really take the time to get to know someone, I think you can figure out what their love language is. You can just kind of tell when you're around someone enough. So there is not a single approach to caring for or connecting with people. Everybody is different. Some people want constant check-ins, some people want the door open, everyone requires something different. So I think it all comes back to just recognizing people's needs. It takes time and intention, but recognizing people's needs and then meeting them there. um Booster, for example, everyone has a different commitment level to Booster, and even though I want everyone to love Booster and want a long time career at Booster, I know that's not realistic. And so I think it's okay to recognize that some people like see that come, and this might be like a year gig for them. And so I'm not going to give them the same treatment or same conversation. I'm going to care for them the exact same amount, but it's definitely going to look different. And I want to meet them at their level. And yeah, I'm trying to think of like an example of that, but I really think it's just like you can't have one specific approach to care. And also, I think this is a good time to say this. I love the line, what gets managed or what gets measured gets managed, I think is what it is. I feel like I'm saying it backwards, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Um, I have my own personal little secret notes on people at work and what kind of things they like. And if I recognize something about someone, if I hear someone say, like, I love words of affirmation, but it doesn't need to be public, I'm putting that in their little, I'm writing that down next to their name. So, taking the time to like really remember what kind of things stick out to people. Um, and then that is now your key to that person. Like, look for those moments where they really kind of like open their eyes up a little bit to what you were doing, and then let that be your key.
Out of curiosity, do you use the notes on the phone? Is that what you use?
I've kind of gone back and forth between notes, and then I also have an Excel sheet just because I'm on my computer so much. So I kind of utilize both.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is a marriage hack for some people out there. anytime that your wife says something important, favorite color, favorite flowers, put that in her contact notes on your phone and reference that. If you ever have any questions, you're welcome.
That is a great marriage hack. I hope all husbands out there were listening because that's great.
I think that we need to lean into something that makes personal care for others and professional care for others even possible. I want us to look into self-care. I think that is really important. And we as a culture are starting to really recognize the importance of it and to just emphasize how important this is and how certain people can perceive this differently. I've got some fun statistics for all of the numbers lovers out there like myself. But when people take the initiative to care for themselves, 64% of people experience a self-confidence boost. And this is according to a recent study. We have 67% of people experience a productivity boost. 71% of people feel an increased sense of happiness. And 73% of people are conscious that they need self-care, more self-care. And 69% of people say that they have a plan in place in order to care for themselves more in the upcoming year. 42% of single individuals prioritize self-care, while only 30% of couples, people in a relationship, prioritize self-care. 49% of parents feel guilty about self-care. 59% of people only practice self-care when they feel stressed. 20% of men feel guilty about self-care, and 24% of women do. And so we have this conflict. We have a lot of people that are experiencing great health benefits, life benefits, work benefits, but then you have people over here that are feeling really guilty about any of this to begin with. If you do not prioritize self-care, you are going to burn yourself out. Point blank. 73% of Gen Z, 73% of Gen Z feels burned out. 57% of millennials, 54% of Gen X, and 39% of boomers. We have a self-care problem. We are aware that it exists. People have intention to do something about it, but intention isn't always the best motivator to get you across the finish line. We have to take action. We have to do something. We have to care for ourselves, because if we cannot fill our own bucket, we cannot fill the buckets of other people. Earlier, whenever we talked about how you can care for others when you don't feel cared for, you can do that, but only for so long before you yourself feel burned out, you're hurt, you have no motivation to keep on going. And so, how do you prioritize self-care in your daily routine? And what would be your encouragement to others?
This has definitely been a journey for me. I actually was just having a conversation with someone today about how even who I was 4 years ago is completely different. I would say for a majority of my life, I always was worried about other people. I was always saying yes to things, taking care of people, whatever it is. And that brought on a lot of issues, obviously, that came with people feeling like maybe I wasn't the most honest or clear, like I was doing something for them. I was always saying yes to doing something, even if that meant I was putting my own life to the side. And you don't want to be that person that someone's always putting their stuff aside to help you. Um, and maybe isn't being honest about that. So I think there can be hurt to others in that. And I think that obviously you can get burnt out. I was getting burnt out by doing that. And so yeah, I think this has definitely been a journey for me and something that I am a lot better on, but am continuing to work on. So self-care for me daily looks like a lot of different things. I don't think it's perfect. Again, with care, I think care is there's not a perfect rule. It's not black and white. You got to do what's best in each scenario and really observe each scenario. So, um, one thing that's big for me is just communicating my needs. If I'm involving other people in kind of my self care planning, I think communicating needs is great. So, say I'm having to cancel plans or I'm having to say no to something, it's okay to say no. But I think just communicating, like, hey, I can't do that tonight. To be totally truthful, I mean, it's been a really crazy week for me. I need to rest up so that I can be better tomorrow. But hey, can I connect with you next week? I'd love to make this happen again. And hopefully, if that's someone who loves you and cares about you, they're going to be like, absolutely. Um, I'm not feeling shut down by her in this moment. I'm getting a no today, but that's not a forever no. So that's one thing that I think is really important and something I try to do is just always communicate with people and communicate where I'm at, what my needs are. You don't ever want to have missed expectations. That is not a fun place to be. Especially being married, that can happen a lot. Like you don't speak up for something you want, and then when they're not doing it for you, you're mad, but you never said what you wanted. So I think that's a great time to do that. But also something that has been really encouraging for me, and this is something I've learned at Booster. Shout out to Jordan Hammock, who was my boss for several years at Booster, and now my colleague, and she's amazing. But she said the encouragement she gave me was in the days that you have to put yourself first, or in the days that you have to say no, in the days you have to make someone upset, whatever it is, that is not going to change someone's perspective of you because of this one day. Like, the people around you know who you are, and they are not taking this one instance and letting that define who you are, how they feel about you. So I'm just really working on just not feeling bad about choosing myself sometimes because I know I'm not doing that every day. And I know that when I have to do that, the people around me know that there's good intention behind that. So that's kind of my personal philosophy around it. But to get a little bit more like tactical, self-care for me has been like recognizing what rejuvenates me, what energizes me. Yes, I'm an extrovert, but I have really tuned into my introverted side these last couple years. I've realized that that's important, and I think I was shutting that out because since I've always been an extrovert, in my head I'm like, oh well, alone time's never gonna work for me, that's not my vibe. But then I'm like dying when I don't have any alone time, so I'm like, it's okay to have that. So I think you got to know yourself, you got to know what gives you energy, um and really structuring your day. Have freedom for yourself with self-care, but also structure has been good for me with self-care. I go to the gym every morning and at 5:30 a.m. and that for me personally has been self-care, having that like structured morning routine. So finding little things like that, walks with my dog. I don't think it's a perfect structured thing, but finding what works for you and making it happen, what brings you joy, make time for it.
The word no is a complete sentence, and people need to
Yes, it
get
is.
more comfortable with that coming out of them and coming to them.
Mhm.
Something that has changed my perspective a lot, to echo what you had just said, that makes me feel better about choosing myself in certain seasons. You have to set healthy boundaries for yourself. And if somebody gets upset by the boundary that you have set for yourself, they are more likely than not to be the person trying to cross it. And that's not somebody that I personally want within my circle. I want people that I can communicate openly with, that I can care for, that if I'm having a bad mental health day, I can send a text message to them and they say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I'm caring for you. What is it that you need? Creating that healthy community. On the episode with David, he talked about the importance of having a community before a storm hits. And how do you go about selecting people for your healthy circle?
That is also a journey. I think being an adult, finding your circle and finding your people is an ever changing thing because you are in such a unique season of life. And, when I went from high school to college, my friends changed. And then you go to from college to adulthood and your friends change. And then it continues to change as seasons and life things happen with people. One thing that's been really, really important to me in this current season is people that just want to do life together. It's not um it's not this it doesn't have to be a show every time we get together. It doesn't have to be a big event every time we get together. I had a friend who recently had a baby and she was like, I have a lot of laundry to do and I'm trying to get all my baby's laundry done and put in their cabinet before they're due in a week. And you can come over and help me with laundry. And I was like, that is great. Can I paint my fingernails while I'm there too? Because I need to do that. And so just like doing life together is something that has been really big for me in this season and something I'm really looking for because life is busy and life is expensive too. And so like it used to be like getting together with your friends was meeting up at a restaurant. And now I'm just like, hey, can we just like do life things together? It's quality time together, but we're doing our life. And I really love that. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for comfortability in friendships. I am a chatter, and something I've had to learn as an adult is it's okay to sit in silence with people. And so went over to some friend's house last week, watched the Olympics, and sometimes we were just staring at the TV for like 15 minutes, but we were in each other's presence. And so yeah, comfortability, doing life together is really big. Um, Communication is huge for me. It's so big. I I need communication if um I'm doing something that's not working in a friendship or if this person's feeling some sort of way. Communication's really big to me. If I feel like someone is not communicating with me, that's a tough thing. Like I'm willing to address that for sure, but um yeah, I want people who can communicate. And my caveat to everything I just said too is that friendship is also not perfect. I think friendship's seasonal. And if someone's not meeting my friendship checklist, that doesn't mean that they're out for me. But it does mean that like I might flow through seasons with friends and who I'm spending the most time with.
It's really good. When I was down in San Antonio, I had stepped away from the church for a little while, and I developed a, a friend group that I would not have today. But that's because I've changed. I'm in a different season of my life. I hold different values than I held at that time. And that's important to recognize, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean, in some cases, it might, but that doesn't mean that you have to cut them off altogether. It may be a limiting interaction. Um, you know your own values, your own morals, your own level of what it is that you're willing to accept. You set your own boundaries, have your own expectations. Lean into those, listen to those, build your circle around those that are going to help you get to where you are. And not only that, but you're helping others to accomplish what they would like as well. I'm not saying that from a selfish point of view as much as you just need to care for each other so much that you want each other to win, whatever that looks like. If that means, hey, just quality time together because you know that that's what the other person needs, then hey, come on over, paint your nails, sit on the couch for 15 minutes at a time and watch the Olympics. And caring for yourself is really important. People feel guilty for doing it. Do not feel guilty for taking care of yourself. Are there seasons where you may need to care for others a little bit more? Sure. If you have a parent in a nursing home and they're needing additional assistance, please, by all means, go help them, take care of them. But there are also seasons where it is important for you to take care of yourself. And what's interesting to me is that statistic where 42, or excuse me, 49% of parents feel guilty about prioritizing self-care. But if parents don't prioritize self-care and lean into that, then that's also going to create issues with the child. If you are listening for someone to give you permission to take care of yourself, consider this your permission. It's really important. It's going to help you to feel more fulfilled in life. Statistically, it's going to help you feel more self-confident, more productive. It's going to increase your happiness. It's going to decrease burnout. And a side effect of burnout, or rather something that it can lead to, is a lot of doubt in what it is that you're doing. It can be hard days and you can think, okay, I'm burned out. I'm tired. Is this really what I want to do? Am I made to do this? Are there other opportunities out there that might be more fulfilling for me? And that can create a sense of feeling lost. It can create feeling stuck. And so what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or stuck in life?
I think there's a few different pieces of advice, and it kind of honestly sums up a lot of what we've talked about. I think surrounding yourself with people who make sense for you in that season. Do you need encouragement? Do you need check-ins? Do you need accountability? What do you need? And voice that, and then surround yourself with those people. I think that's super important. We were not put on this earth to be alone. And we were put on this earth to have people around us, whatever that looks like. And so I don't think we should go through anything alone. And so having people to encourage you in those moments is really, really important. And then this is one I'll tread lightly with kind of how I say this. So I don't want it to come across wrong, but if you are feeling burnt out with a certain situation, sometimes that is, this situation is burning me out and I need to distance myself from that. Um, I would also encourage people to look within and see if there's almost a mindset shift that needs to happen. Um, an example, I really struggle with carrying things, carrying people's emotions, people's struggles, people's hard days, people's seasons. And when I'm constantly stressing about that, I'm immediately on the road to burnout. Sometimes I have to remind myself to show up and give my best that day and then let it go. And I cannot carry that load. So that is not the answer to everything. Sometimes there are things in your life that you do need to distance yourself from because it's not healthy or it's not toxic or it's not right for you in that season, whatever it is. But I think it's worth just looking within and saying like, is there something can I let go of this weight? Can I let go of this pressure? Will that help me feel a little less burnt out? So that would be like the advice I'd have, is surround yourself with great people, look within, um, and know that every season is a season and don't let it bring you down. Enjoy the ride of life and acknowledge and recognize hard seasons you're in, and that's okay. Like, again, no false positivity. Like, sometimes we got to live in that and recognize it, but there are brighter days ahead, and keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the future and know that everything's a season.
I think one of the most important things to recognize and to establish if you are in this area of life where you're feeling lost and you're feeling stuck, is to recognize which of the four stages you fall into of stuck. And so a couple of episodes ago, I introduced my framework for the four stages of stuck, where the very first stage is you just do not want to change. Period. You're content where you are in life. Growth isn't even on your brain. The second step is you're afraid to look at yourself in the mirror and admit where you really are. These are people that may make lies about their life to make their life seem better than it actually is, or it may be somebody that just doesn't want to be honest with themselves, and so they don't have an honest baseline that they can grow from. The third stage is that people make excuses to stay where they are. They have an accurate baseline, but they say things like, oh, well, I don't have the time to go to the gym. Or tomorrow is whenever I'm going to start my diet. That's where a lot of people fall into. And the fourth stage is that they're interested in growing, but they genuinely don't know how. And in your life right now, think high level. Would you say that you fall into any of those stages? Or would you say that you fall into the unnamed fifth stage where you're growing in a healthy way?
Ooh. Okay, remind me what 3 and 4 were.
Yep. So I'll just quickly go over it. So stage number one is you're not interested in growth. Number two is that you're afraid to look yourself in the mirror and admit where you are. Three is that you make excuses to stay where you are. And number four is you're interested in growing, you just don't know how.
Oh, I feel like I'm gonna maybe expose myself a little bit here. I definitely think that I catch myself in the making excuses and staying space a lot. And I don't really know how to perfectly pinpoint what that is. I definitely consider myself a driven and motivated person. But it might just be like a feeling of being lost, or I tend to be a little bit more on the indecisive side. I'm not like the most sure of the future, the most sure of the next path, and that's a growth area for me and something I'm working on, is being like more futuristic. And so that's probably why is I'm just so focused on the present moment, and it's really hard for me to look far out. And so because of that, I probably find myself making excuses at times, and not going after that next step.
I think that it's really good to recognize which of those stages you're in, because in order to move from stage to stage, you need different tools to do that. And each and every tool that is provided falls into one of the three categories, either personal, professional, or self-care. And so I definitely wanted to tie the stages into this episode. If anybody has any questions about how to move from, or even recognize which stage you're in and how to move from stage to stage, you can send an email to the Joshua Bridwell Show at gmail.com, and I will look over your situation and provide some feedback. And in the near future, I plan to have a live show where you can call in and you can ask whatever questions you have. We can navigate your stages of stuck, how you can really care for yourself in stressful times and slow times and faster paced times. I think that it's really, really important to care for other people. It might not be everybody's first inclination, but that is definitely a tool that we need to practice each and every day. It is not something that comes natural to a lot of people, especially in culture today. We are a society that wants what we want, and we want it right now. But we sometimes do need to put others before ourselves. Everything that you've summed up, Aubrey, has been just absolute gold. And I hope that people take pieces of those gold nuggets and can apply them to their lives to become a better father, mother, husband, wife, kid, uncle, aunt, friend, team member. Because caring for other people has so many benefits that I think will fix a lot of problems that we have in our society today. And one way that I take care of myself, segueing into my favorite question here, but one of the ways that I like to take care of myself and unwind as an introvert is I love to read. And so, what would you say are 3 books that have been transformational in your life?
Ooh, I actually have my books right behind me, which is really nice. So I kind of have a little bit of a cheat back here. Um, okay, I have two right off the top of my head. The first one is Crucial Conversations, and it may be looked at as like a business book, but I think it can be really helpful in life. It helps you address conflict, it tells you how to do it. Um, the biggest thing it teaches you in the book is asking questions, start everything with a question. And I love that. I thought that was just a really great tool that I'll have with me forever. So, Crucial Conversations was really great. Um, a New Kind of Diversity is a really awesome book that talks through all the different generations and and it was written since COVID, which I think is a really awesome perspective. So it talks about each generation and how they operate at work, how they operate in life, and how every single one of those generations brings great qualities, but how can they all work together to help um, fill others' gaps? And it's really awesome. It talks about how, like, obviously, um like boomers, for example, are a lot of the older boomers are leaving the workplace, and so it's now in the hands of millennials and Gen Z. So how can we fill that? It's really, really great book. So those two have been really awesome. And I think this book's going to be transformational for me, but I haven't finished it yet. But I have heard it is The Courage to Be Disliked
Ooh,
is one that I've already started, and I feel like I can recommend it. I got it at Half Price Books. Shout
shout
out.
out.
But yeah, those are just three that have stuck in my mind and pop up often and have helped shape how I go about life sometimes.
That's awesome. I'm a big believer that leaders are readers. They're constantly surrounding themselves by the ideas of other people and engaging in conversations on the page. Um, and so I love to promote the books that are transformational to other leaders such as yourself. And so if any of these books sound interesting to you, I'm actually going to put the link in the description below. Check them out. And do you have any questions that you would like from me to answer? Do you have any final thoughts?
Ooh,
Put me in the hot seat.
yeah, put you in the hot seat. I would say, okay, how about this? How has I think this could be applicable to people who even aren't married. Maybe it's relationship focused, whatever relationship looks like for you. What would you say marriage has taught you, or how has it changed how you care or connect with other people?
It's really good. The first thing, because there's no just one answer here, the first thing is it's taught me to be patient. I am a very ambitious person. I'm an achiever. And being married has made me slow down and explain where I'm going to other people in such a way that they're going to want to either come with me or maybe I am trying to go too fast or maybe I just need to change direction entirely because when you're married, the direction that you're going may not be the healthiest direction once you're married. And being able to slow down, be patient, and leaning into that communication piece, I think is going to be really important. And the way that has helped me to care for other people is it's allowed me to slow down and think about, is this really the healthiest direction that the team is going, or is this the healthiest direction that I'm going? The other way that it's taught me to care is it's taught me to communicate on a different level. It's taught me to listen. I used to have a really big humility problem. And this leans more into the overall relationship side rather than just the marital side. But I used to have a really big humility problem. All I cared about was myself. And when all I cared about was myself, then all I could do is only seek what was beneficial to me. I had to make every conversation about me. I had to only take opportunities that benefited me. I didn't really care so much what happened to other people. But whenever I focused on becoming more humble, I still have a ways to go in my journey, but man, I'm so far from where I've been. That that has actually allowed me to engage with the people that I have been dating in a much healthier way. Being able to listen, to ask questions that aren't prompted by something that basically slowing down enough for me to hear what they're saying without having a formulated next question in my brain. Being genuinely interested in other people. When you're genuinely interested in other people and you listen, that provides a new way that you're able to lean into caring for others.
Yep. So good. Interested over interesting. I
Yep.
love that. It's
And
it's tough with humans. It's tough to push past that and not be like wanting to offer your own thoughts or, you know, jump in to a conversation quicker than needed. So it's a hard lesson to learn, but a good one.
yeah, I want to lean into one more piece here. Leaning into the question that I had earlier was, how do you care for others when you don't necessarily feel cared for yourself? In marriage, that could be hard
Mm-hmm.
because you both have your own lives going on, and at the end of the day, you have to come together and live one cohesive life in one space. And you could both have a really difficult day, but at the end of the day, I'm a man of faith. At the end of the day, love is patient, love is kind, love is not self-seeking, it's not envious. And so being able to still set yourself aside to love the other person, to care for your significant other is not just something that you should do. It's a responsibility. It's an obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And how you want to be cared for is not how your significant other wants to be cared for 9 out of 10 times. Be able to slow down, be patient, be understanding, ask the intentional questions, help them to become the person that they want to be, not the person you want them to be. That takes self-control. It takes intentional asking questions. It takes quality time. It takes brainstorming. It takes communication, cooperation, and it takes a lot of care and intentionality.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I think that's why I don't I don't think that I don't like the phrase marriage is hard because I feel like that has like a very negative connotation. But I do think that marriage takes work and I think it takes intentionality. And I think it's really important for people to recognize that and be willing to put in the work. And, you said it earlier, communication is a really big part of that. And I think that's a great starting point. If you can communicate amongst each other, that's kind of going to lay the foundation for everything moving forward. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. And I think that's really important stuff to remember.
Awesome. Well, Aubrey, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No final thoughts from me. Just thanks for having me. And I love talking about this stuff. And I don't think that anybody has reached perfection in care or whatever specific skill or quality or trait you have. And so I think it's an ongoing conversation. There's ongoing growth and looking deep within yourself, learning more. Um, and so I love diving into those conversations if anyone wants to, but I also encourage people out there to do that for themselves. Never stop learning, always be striving and learning more. There's no ceiling to hit with your personal growth.
Well, thanks for accepting the invite to be on the show, and thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you've provided for other people. You are changing lives through this conversation, and you are an incredible leader. You are a great carer of people. Don't lose that flame. And this has been the Joshua Bridwell Show. Tune in next time. Let's grow.